I'm here today because my mother had Alzheimer's disease. She died in 1985. This is the rest of the story. I was an only child. I had very supportive mom and dad. I married Frank Winslow, a career Army officer, in 1953. In the next 25 years, we had 6 children and moved 28 times. When my dad died in the early 60s, my mom went back to work. Frank had 2 hardship tours. He was gone for a year each time. Both times, Mom came to live with us and to be the other adult in the family with 6 kids. In 1970, we moved to Germany. Mom moved too, and she lived in a little apartment around the corner, and she started working. A year later, my mom, who was in her early 70s, began to have memory problems. She went to a doctor and she said to the doctor, I'm having trouble. And the doctor said, well, I'll talk to you. And so he examined her and they talked back and forth. And finally he said, go home and forget it. Well, that really wasn't much help, but my mother began her dementia journey. It was a slow process of brain failure. No medical diagnosis. She was just becoming senile. Frank retired. We returned to the States. In 1979, our family moved to Bellingham so our 4 college-age kids could live at home and go to Western. In 1980, we got a name for my mom's problem, Alzheimer's disease. Our family struggled to help Mom live with her failing brain. With 6 adults, my husband, 4 sons, and me to support her, it still wasn't easy. We enrolled her in the Adult Day Health program. It was kind of like get up in the morning and get ready for the Adult Day Health. It was like getting your kids ready for the school bus. So I would lay out her clothes for her, and she would come out, and we would be waiting for the bus. And so one morning she came out, and I looked at her, and she looked fine until I got down to her feet. And when I looked at her feet, she had her socks on, no shoes. So I said, well, let's go back to your room and get your shoes. So we went back, couldn't find her shoes. Looked over all around the house real quickly. Bus time, no shoes. Finally, I looked carefully. She had her socks on over her shoes. But she made the bus. Our family activities, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, PTA, morphed into dementia-related activities, as you heard, including the Alzheimer's Society. My mother was becoming more impaired. She became incontinent. Then she was no longer appropriate for the Adult Day Health program. It was time to go nursing home shopping. And our house really didn't meet her needs anymore. It just a carpeted floor and a bathroom hard to find and so forth. I didn't have a brother or sister help make a decision, but my family was very supportive. And then I remembered my mother had visited a friend who was in a nursing home lying in a bed and unable to speak, and her comment was, I never want to live like that. I concluded that with her dementia, I would never do anything to interrupt her life, but I would never want any medical procedure to extend it. I met with the nursing home administrator and talked about Mother's care. And then Mother and I met with the nursing home medical director. He confirmed that he understood the kind of care she wanted, nothing to extend her life. Life in a nursing home in the early 1980s was very different from what life in a nursing home with dementia is today. Everyone was learning about people with how to care for people with dementia. About 8 o'clock one morning, I got a call from the police department, and they said, we found this lady walking down the street, and she looked kind of lost. She had this bracelet on, it has her name, and it has your phone number. And so, do you want us to bring her back home to you? And I said, no, she actually is living in the nursing home. So they took her back to the nursing home, but right away, the nursing home established a separate locked area for people with dementia. On a visit to the nursing home, I happened to look at her medical chart and suddenly realized it said, do everything. I don't know how it happened, but we got the chart changed back so it said no medical intervention. The nursing home called about the fact she has a high temperature, and I said, please, no medications. Then one day I went up to the nursing home, and they had this little separate area, a little garden area, and she was walking around outside, and there was this oval, and she was taking step after step after step, and I just watched her. And I said, Each step was so deliberate. I said, you don't have to continue to fight against Alzheimer's. I had no idea if she understood what I was saying. Soon after, though, the nursing home called and said she closed her mouth. Should we force her to eat? And I said, no. They said if she doesn't eat, she could die in a couple of weeks. My response, as overwhelmed by dementia as she is, if she refuses to eat, we must honor her choice. Within just a few days, they called, she had died during the night. Her strong will allowed her to escape the downward spiral of dementia. Mother had defeated dementia by stopping eating and drinking. But this was only because the nursing home administration respected our representation of her wishes. Our experience showed that we needed legislation to allow a family member to speak for someone who could not speak for herself. My husband, Frank, was advocating in Olympia on behalf of people affected by dementia. He spoke to the legislators. They passed, with no problems, RCW 7.70.065. And if you want to look that up, you can look it up on Google. It allows a hierarchy of persons to speak for a person who can no longer speak for himself or herself. First, there's a guardian appointed by the court. If there's no guardian, a person who has a durable power of attorney for health care can speak for that person. If the person has neither a guardian or has done the paperwork ahead of time, a spouse can speak for a spouse. Adult children can speak for their parents. Parents can speak for their children. And brothers and sisters can speak for their sibling as long as they all agree. As a result of what our family learned from my mother's journey through dementia, family members of Washington State can now legally speak for someone who can no longer speak on their own behalf. Thank you.